Welcome to the Through These Gates podcast, the most rational Nebraska football show on the internet. Happy Halloween. That's right, we waited a day because I wanted to let the game marinate a little bit and maybe be a little bit more rational, on par with the show motto, after all. That's right, it's All Hallows Eve. Scott Frost costumes are out in full force. We had a couple of them at our show, Night of the Laughing Dead, on Saturday at Beach House Bar and Grill in Omaha, Nebraska. You can check that out on my Twitter at Caleb Isn't Funny. There were some hilarious Scott Frost costumes on there. Follow me on Insta while you're at it too, at Caleb Isn't Funny. Caleb Salvatore Comedy on TikTok. And my other show that's based on outlawstreamers.com. Before we get started, can I just vent for a minute? Stop driving your kids to trick or treat. And when I say that, I don't mean like if you live in a neighborhood that doesn't do Halloween, don't take them somewhere that does. I'm not saying that. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who pussyfoot their way up the street, one house at a time, and let their kid out. That is ridiculous. Stop doing that. You're creating two things. You're creating a horrible traffic jam for people that are just trying to get through the neighborhood. And you're creating a kid who's going to turn into an adult that's going to be every bit as lazy as their worthless parents. So stop doing it. Stop driving your kids from house to house unless they have a disability that makes it so they can't move, or if you have one, I get it. But there's no way that there's that many people that fall into those two categories. That's not a thing. It's lazy people. Being fat is not a disability. Sorry. Just wanted to get that off my chest. Let me know what you were for Halloween and what your biggest holiday pet peeve is in the comments. I'm interested. I want to know what your biggest pet peeve not just Halloween, any holiday. What's your biggest pet peeve on the holidays? Let me know in the comments. Whew. Oh, and send me your costume. If you did Scott Frost or some like Nebraska-related costume, send it Caleb Salvatore. That's Salvatore 95 at gmail.com. Again, that's Caleb Salvatore 95 at gmail.com. Send me your costumes, and if it's funny or clever, maybe I'll put it on the show next week. But yeah, that was a tough game. I wanted to wait because there were a lot of thoughts going through my head. And it's not like it's been in past weeks where you could point out one glaring position group that really screwed the pooch on it, because there were so many issues. That looked, for the first time, I mean, other than the Oklahoma game, which I don't really count, but for the first time since Mickey Joseph took over, that looked like a Scott Frost coach team. Lots of bad coaching there. And it doesn't even fall on the coaches. First off, when Casey went down, why is Purdy in the game? You know what you got with him, and it ain't much. I hope that one of the recruits coming in, or Torres, once he gets healthy, I hope that one of those guys, or even Harburg, I hope one of those guys is the answer at quarterback long term, because it's not Chubba Purdy. Like, at least with Smothers, you have the possibility of him running for something. He may not be a great passer, but my God, you couldn't be worse than what we saw from Purdy. That was bad. Bad. I don't care. The offensive line, as much crap as I've given them, they were bad on par as usual, but Nebraska had more sacks than Illinois did. So I'm not going to pin this game on the offensive line. They're bad. We get it. They weren't as bad as normal. We've seen them play much worse than they did on Saturday against worse pass rushes. Honestly, we talked about how Illinois had one of the best pass rushes in the Big Ten on the pregame show. They kind of held their own as much for them as much as they could. But it highlights something bigger. Scott, what a disaster that Frost was. And I hate to beat the dead horse and just kick him while he's down in a drunken stupor down. But I hate to do it, but it does show what a disaster it was. He was here for 5 years. 5 years, right? This guy was here for 5 years, and we have absolutely no depth. As soon as Casey went down, you knew it was over. The offense was teetering on bad. It was like on the fence between having a good day and a bad day, and as soon as he went down, you knew it was over. And Casey was not that impressive. He isn't all that great, or at least he wasn't on Saturday. The fact that when your average quarterback goes down, you know the game is over, It shows how little depth you have. Dude, Kansas is still playing with teams and winning games. Kansas. In what, year 2 under Leipold? I mean, you got to have some kind of depth. And if you're going to have depth anywhere, it's got to be at quarterback. You got to have a number 2 in this day and age in college football. You have to. How do you not have a number 2 quarterback on the roster that's serviceable? It's certainly not Purdy. And Mickey Joseph bears some of the responsibility here, not for failing to develop depth, but you're the head coach. Tell Whipple he can work on developing his boy another time. We're trying to win a game. Put Smothers in. Hopefully Casey's okay. Because if not, I mean, it's pretty much a wash on this season. I think one of the positives that came out of this, one of the few positives that came out of this game, it depends on how you look at it, but I think it was a good thing that maybe the honeymoon with Mickey Joseph can somewhat come to a close. I'm not saying he's eliminated from the contention for the job after this game. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is these people, there's a significant portion of the fan base that's gotten it in their head that it's either Mickey Joseph or bust, and they won't accept anybody else as a head coach next year. It has to be Mickey. Before the season even played out. Guy won 2 games. Sure, it was an improvement from Frost, but 2 games against, let's be real, mediocre teams at best. Unimpressive teams. And they came through in moments where Frost didn't. There were noticeable improvements, but it wouldn't be hard to be an improvement from the shit show we just watched for 5 years. So yes, I can understand why people were excited about Mickey. I still hope he wins out and gets the job, maintaining the same thing. But we got to let the season play out. We got to be a little bit more reasonable here. Okay? We just got curb stomped by Illinois at home. Don't care if they're ranked. Don't care if Bielema is the coach. We just got smashed by Illinois. That should never happen in Nebraska. Certainly not at home. Don't care about injuries. Don't care who's the coach. Should not happen. So again, not saying Mickey's out, not saying he's a bad coach, not saying I don't want him, but we can be a little bit more reasonable now. We can come, and there's always going to be those crazy Husker fans, but we can come a little bit closer back down to earth now and say, hey, okay, maybe we can pump the brakes. He could still be the guy. Let's let the season play out. They're not going to hire anybody before the end of the season anyway. At least they're not going to announce it. Let the season play out before we get sold on a guy. You'd think after how badly we just got burned that Nebraska fans would be a little bit more cautious before they approached another coach with a savior complex like this. But who am I kidding? We're Nebraska fans. The rational slogan in this show is sarcastic. It's tongue-in-cheek. We're irrational as fuck, man. So no, I don't think Mickey's out. But I wouldn't... the people that were gung-ho about him a week ago can relax now. Just relax. They're probably going to lose to Michigan. You got Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin coming up. Not in that order, obviously. All 3 of those games, they won't win all 3 of them, but all 3 of those games are winnable. That's the key. You can win all 3 of those games. They won't, but you can win 2 of them. It'd be very reasonable to beat Minnesota and Iowa. Minnesota does not look like the world-beating team they looked like at the beginning of the season. They don't. Iowa looks like Iowa. Because that's what happens when you have a coach and a fan base that settles for 7-8 wins a year like Iowa does. It's great until the wheels start to fall off, because then the fans start to take a step back and go, what the hell have you, why are we being so loyal to you? What the hell have you actually done for us? And they go look back and it's nothing. Mediocre seasons. Every now and then you'll make a Big Ten championship or the Rose Bowl or something, but mediocre, slightly above average seasons year in and year out. And that's fine until you start losing, until you have a down year or two. Then they start to get a little antsy. And that the criticisms with Nebraska is I would rather, that's why I'm being so picky for a coach. I don't want a guy like a Matt Campbell. That's why I don't want a guy like that, because I would rather, like, as bad as the Frost experiment was, with the track record he had coming in, I would take that chance 10 out of 10 times again before I went with a Kirk Ferentz type coach or a Matt Campbell type coach and settled for a guy who's going to win 7-8 games a year. I would rather swing for the fences and miss than hit a single every time I go up to bat. Sorry. That's what it is. A single and followed by 3 outs in a row, that would be the equivalent there. Sorry. That's how I am. So just give it time. Just give it time. Maybe Mickey wins out. Don't think they'll beat Michigan. If they do, great. Don't think it's going to happen, especially if Thompson isn't good to go. I guess we can go into grades for the week. It's tough to... Sorry, I just had a friend text me say, we live in Oregon now. That was out of left field. That was weird. I was pulling up the stats from the previous game, and I saw that. I was like, what the hell? Grades. Quarterback. I got to go D. It was bad, man. Like I said, Thompson didn't even look great when he was in. He looked like he might have been starting to find his rhythm there. But, And then, Purdy came in and just looked god-awful. God-awful. Running backs, I actually didn't think the running backs looked too bad. I give the running backs a B. I think they were underutilized. And I'll get into Mark Whipple's play calling in a minute. But I think the running backs were underused. And they looked good. Nebraska, despite Chase Brown being the lead rusher, Nebraska's running backs actually averaged more yards per carry. So I think it was just a situation where they were underused. Receiving, that's tough. Trey Palmer, 1 catch for 1 yard. Receivers, I'm going to give a D as well. You did not see the production you needed from the receivers in this game. It was bad. It was just bad. The only reason I don't go F is because Alante Brown had a couple good plays, and I hit week in and week out in the pregame shows how important it is for us to find that number 2 guy, and I really want it to be him. So I'll give him a D. They'll avoid the F. Tight ends, I got to give an A. Vokalek on that was a phenomenal play. It was a good pass by Casey, too. Good movement and stuff. But, Vokalek, to maintain the control of a body that big, come down and book it for a touchdown like that. And then Brewington also. Brewington had a couple great plays. They even got Borkircher involved a little bit. And like I said, the run game was solid, which means the tight ends are blocking well. You got to give the tight ends an A, man. I don't give a lot of A grades out in losses, which means I don't give a lot of A grades out, period. But the tight ends looked solid. I got no gripes, man. Everything else considered, I can't be too hard on them. They did good. Offensive line, C-, which if you grade on a curb is like an A+ for them. C-. It fell apart like it always does, but they had me going for about half a quarter there that they might actually have something strung together. Defensive line. We got B+. The defense, honestly, with all things considered, didn't look terrible. Chase Brown was held under 5 yards a carry. He had 150 yards, but he did it on 32 carries. They got a lot of pressure on DeVito. They had more sacks than Illinois did, if I'm not mistaken. And that goes into defensive ends as well. Outside linebackers, I give a B as well. Inside linebackers, I'll give it A. No. B+ for inside linebackers. Because of Luke Reimer's dumbass penalty. How about that? Defensive backs, probably a C. There were some plays they could have made that they didn't. Some plays they did. It was the very typical lukewarm performance from this secondary that we've come to get used to here. So nothing really out of the ordinary from them, but I'll give them a C. Special teams, F. That blocked PAT, my God. Why does Ben Hart play football? Does he understand how the game works? He didn't even get out of his stance. It's been going viral. I'm pretty sure Barstool shared it. What a disaster. What a train wreck. I shouldn't say F because that D-. That was bad. That play alone dropped it. That PAT, I mean, that's not the kicker's fault. You can't get mad at him for it. The guy didn't even stand up. He didn't even try. What are you doing out there? Do you not want to be there? You can go home. No one's making you play. We'd probably all prefer it. Get out of here. And then coaching, D+. This was not a team that came prepared to play. Was not a team that came prepared to play. Dumb mental mistakes, like the Reimer penalty. The Ben Hart, whatever the hell that was, that goes into coaching as well. You got a guy out there just decided to, in the most literal sense of the phrase, take a play off. You hear about guys taking a play off, they'll get out of their stance slow and they're dogging it or whatever. No, he took the play off. He didn't even come out of his stance. I don't know. And then Joseph, you've got to take control there with Whipple. You got to step in and say, listen, I'm the head coach. You are not running the sideline. Whipple needs to be in the booth, by the way. Name one other offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, sure. One other offensive coordinator that's on the field. Take Whipple out. Purdy also had that horrible pass for that interception. Oh, God. It was one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. It was bad. But take Purdy out. Should not have been in there. Should have rolled with Smothers. At least Smothers gives you the element of the run game. And that's really it. It's like I said, Mickey's not out. I'd say there's a 90% chance he's on the staff to some degree next year. But you got to keep in mind, it's all situational. It depends, man. Like if Nebraska, I don't care what the message board jerk-offs and the Tradition Coalition say. If Urban Meyer said he wanted to come to Nebraska and he'd do it for $8 million a year, they'd take him. Period. $10 million a year, they'd take him. 12, they'd pay Urban. You pay if Urban Meyer wants to come to your school, you pay the man. Sorry. Hopefully you don't fake a brain tumor like you did at Florida or whatever that allegedly, whatever that situation was down there. But if Urban Meyer were to come here and say, I want a clean house, I want to bring my entire new staff in. These are the guys I trust. This is the condition of getting me multi-national championship head coach. They take him. Like Trev's not going to be like, well, if we do that, we'll lose Malachi Coleman. You know, and no disrespect to Malachi Coleman, I'm thrilled he's coming here. But if you're asking me to trade him if you're asking me to trade a high school kid, albeit a talented one, for one of the greatest head coaches of all time, it's a no-brainer. Urban Meyer will more than make up for it. It'd suck to lose him. I don't want to. But like Alberts is not letting the potential to lose a couple recruits affect his decision. Now, if it was like a Dave Aranda or Chris Kleiman, or Lance Leipold, if it were Matt Campbell, God forbid, not Matt Campbell. If it were somebody like that that's maybe a little bit less proven, Mickey Joseph staying might be contingent. Like that might be required. It's non-negotiable. You don't get to get rid of Mickey. You can bring in whoever else you want, but Mickey's going to stay. And honestly, though, I said it before. He's honest. It's not a fringe hire as a receivers coach. Maybe as an offensive coordinator, but as a receivers coach, he's probably top 10 in the country. And he's one of the best recruiters. I really don't know what coach wouldn't want him. The guy, he's produced results both on the field and in recruiting. And he's a good guy and his players like it. There's no downside to having Mickey Joseph. But what I'm saying is, if you had a coach like an Urban Meyer that wanted to come coach at Nebraska, and he said, the only way I'm coming is if I can have full control of this staff. if I can bring my guys in that I know and I trust to get the job done, they're not going to lose an opportunity like that to keep their receivers coach and a couple other recruits. They're just not going to do it, and people need to be realistic. And I don't think we're going to get Urban Meyer. I would love that, but I don't think we're going to get him, number one. I don't think we're going to get rid of Mickey. I truly do. 90 to 95% chance he's on the staff to some degree next year. I'd put it at that right now. I'm just trying to prepare you. If something like that were to happen, don't be surprised if that new coach comes in and cleans house. Now, if they hire like a Matt Campbell, we can all riot. But if they hire like a Dave Aranda, or they hire Lance Leipold or Chris Kleiman, somebody like that, Bronco Mendenhall, if they hire somebody like that, a Matt Rule, if they bring somebody, I don't want Matt Rule. If they bring somebody like that in, and they fire Mickey Joseph, then we got a right to be mad, or at least start asking some questions. Who does this guy have that's better than Mickey Joseph, the national championship winning receivers coach who between Jefferson and Jamar Chase, 2 top 10 wide receivers in the NFL right now, and recruited Trey Palmer, brought him and developed him at Nebraska, the best receiver we've seen at Nebraska in my lifetime. In my lifetime. There has not been a better receiver at Nebraska. Possibly ever. I don't consider Johnny Rodgers a receiver. I mean, you're going back to the Irving Fryer days. I digress, nonetheless. So, just mentally prepare yourselves. Abandon the savior complex. We like Mickey. He's a good guy. He's a good coach. He's a likable guy. He's a great recruiter. Players like him. Players love him. Fans love him. He's a great guy to rally around. But do not put all your eggs in one basket. And certainly don't put them in the basket of a guy who's never coached D1 football until September of this year. That's all I'm saying. Just be a little bit more realistic here. Anyway, this has been the Through These Gates podcast. I am your host, Caleb Salvatore. Follow me at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram. You can watch me melt down live during the Nebraska games. Reaction will come late again next week. I'm going to be out of town. You can follow my TikTok at Caleb Salvatore Comedy. Follow my personal YouTube, Caleb Salvatore. My main show, that's based on outlawstreamers.com. It's also on Rumble, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. Bad singing. I can't do it. Did I forget to plug anything else? Roast Battles, Beach House Bar and Grill, 12/3. It's a Saturday at 9 p.m., $10 online and at the door. I'll be hosting it. We run it. It's a great time. We got live performances, a couple live performances. It's going to be a special night. We got some tricks up our sleeve. One of the performances will be Scott Zimmerman, who just got done running for governor. He's a comedian. Well, he'll have just gotten done running for governor by the time that show comes around. But he's a comedian. That's what he does. He's a comedian that ran for governor. He's going to be performing live, doing a real raw set for the first time since he declared his intentions to run. We got Tyro Frazier will be doing a performance, and then Chris Baker, formerly of 1110 KFAB, will be on the show as well. He will be doing a performance between some of the roasts, and then we got a lot of great comics that are going to roast each other throughout the night. It's a great time. It's truly a great atmosphere. There's nothing else like it in the arts and entertainment industry in this city, so I would strongly advise, if you are in the Omaha, even Lincoln metro area, come out and check it out. It's one-of-a-kind thing. We don't do it every month because we don't want to oversaturate it, but everybody has a great time. It's always packed. We love it. Verbal Assault Comedy Roast Battles, December 3rd, Beach House Bar and Grill, Omaha, Nebraska, 9 p.m. We don't have a ticket link yet. When we get one, it will be in the link description on the videos going forward. But you can also just pay $10 cash at the door, which is cool because you don't got to pay fees, neither do we. And we also don't got to pay this little thing called taxes on it. I'm kidding, IRS. I'm kidding. Of course, I claim every penny I've ever made. Going back to the Tooth Fairy money. Anyway, thank you so much. This has been the Through These Gates podcast. Happy Halloween. Appreciate you guys waiting for me. Peace out. God help us all.